Hello guys and welcome back. This is Mr. Siege. Now in the last video, you may have seen it, you may have not, and it was very recent. I gave you the priority tier list. So the best march to invest in, or the best commanders to invest in at the top, down to the lower value commanders to invest in that really probably aren't worth investing to many people out there. But obviously some, if you're a Siege main, and I don't recommend being a Siege main. I still don't recommend that to really anybody. Your priority really, I think, is one march. And mainly that's probably just to try being a Siege player. If you like being a Siege player, yes, you could run 2, maybe 3 marches. And I think after that, you're sort of losing quite a bit of value. I'd say probably your second and third march generally performs quite equal. And your top march, obviously, outperforms those by, you're looking 20-30%, I would say, in kills, that is. So let's get on with this video. Now, again, no surprise to anybody, the S tier march is Gonzalo, Gajah, mada, or Gajah, mada, Gonzalo. I prefer running them around this way. I would always put Gajah, mada as the primary commander, just because he has the extra healing, and that keeps the march alive for longer. You want your best march alive as long as possible, keeping as many troops in your march as possible, which will entail higher amounts of kills over a longer period of time. Now, if your fights are very short, then probably best to go Gonzalo, Gajah, mada. If your fights are probably 2 minutes long, I would say that's going to be your best march. I think anything over sort of like 3 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, this will be the march to go for. So I'm only going to put the one march in S tier because that outperforms any other march, and I don't think anything really compares to that march. Now, one thing that comes close would be your Margaret and Cordoba. Now, that performs really well, does a lot of damage in a short amount of time, with Margaret's 50% normal damage boost, but it's not quite S tier. Now, I love to run this march, and I split my pairings up, and as I'll show you in a second, if you're running 2 siege marches, I do recommend splitting the Gajah and Cordoba up, because overall value, I think you get a lot more bang for your buck. But the trouble with this march is there is some healing, but the healing just isn't as great as your Gajah, mada. So it's pretty survivable, but doesn't have the high survivability as your Gajah, mada, Cordoba. But it is a very good march and highly recommended by me. Now, another march option you can go for in your second march would be your Babur with Gajah, mada. Now, again, really solid march. Now, these are the 4 commanders you'd probably invest in to get the most kills out of 2 marches. Now, there's no harm in running 2 marches as this, Gajah, mada, Cordoba, Margaret, Babur, but I just think there's way more value running them like that. And again, Gajah, mada can be primary with Babur, and you'll get more longevity. Again, the health of this march is incredible. Now, if you throw this march out towards the front, just in front of you, Margaret, Cordoba, it will tank pretty well and give you more opportunity of getting away with this march, because if this march does get swarmed, it is a little bit weaker, not as tanky as this march at the front, but this will just do great amounts of damage. And yeah, even in a swarming situation, it can do pretty well, depending who you're up against in your gear and stuff like that, of course. Now, another A tier march would be, I should have put John first, but it's going to be your John and Stephen. Now, I just would keep these together. I don't think that's worth splitting up. They do work so well together. Obviously, attacking lower health marches will make this even stronger. Now, it performs as well as all these others pretty much with just attacking anybody. Auto firing, it does very well. It has got the potential to be sort of on par with Gajah, Cordoba, but you do have to be targeting low health marches, keeping the active seals going constantly, and it's a lot of work really to match, match this pairing up here, which is why it doesn't make the S tier. I think it's just too much work. It can perform really well. Now you can get lucky, leave it firing on auto fire, and it will pull in some really good reports. So it's definitely worth thinking about investing in this pairing. Now another A tier march. Now we've got so many A tier marches here. Would be your Babur and Cordoba, and I think you can alternate these really either way round. But I think Babur is a stronger primary from testing. Now it's not really recommended because it's got no healing, but it really does slap in a short fight where you don't have to have amazing survivability. I don't think I'd run it in an altar fight, because you want something that's going to last for a decent amount of time. You're generally getting longer fights there in an altar. For another A tier march, I'm not really thinking of putting Afonso there. Afonso did perform okay with Stephen. You could run Afonso with Cordoba, but there's so many other options, and it's just not as good as all these. In fact, Afonso Cordoba as a second march, or as an A tier march even, it performs okay, but synergy wise, very little. It doesn't perform even as well as Babur Cordoba. There's no healing, and I just really wouldn't recommend it. It's definitely going to get an okay amount of kills just because it is. You've got double AoE, fairly tanky commanders as well. It will perform okay, but it's just highly not recommended, because you've got all these better options, in my opinion. These are all going to outperform that march, but it still is an A tier march, guys. And the thing is with these legendary Season of Conquest engineering commanders, they are so interchangeable that it makes it really hard to pinpoint which is the best march. Now they're all going to perform really well. Either way round, you're going to get great kills, or you could get great kills, obviously, unless you get swarmed or your fighting is just terrible, and you've seen plenty of that from me where you're just not getting great fighting, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think those are the best second options, but you really want to keep Cordoba with either Margaret or Gajah Mada. Again, potentially Babur. I don't think you'd want to run with Afonso. Maybe you could get double AoE in an altar and it'd be okay. Just for me, it's just not recommended. Now, getting onto the B tier. Again, Cordoba can be pretty much paired with any of these, and it's going to perform okay. Could we put him in B tier with anybody? I don't think I really want to put Cordoba in B tier. So I'm going to put these in B tier. Obviously, Archimedes, Afonso actually performs okay, especially with the museum buff. It's going to perform even better. Yes, I think even John with Afonso. Now, you know what? I don't think. Yeah, it was okay. It was okay, but it wasn't amazing. I think Archimedes Afonso was about on the same level here. Stephen Afonso actually worked okay. I think that was actually better. I think Afonso was actually primary there though. So yeah, Afonso Stephen was okay. I say that's probably best of the B tier. And B tier, we're talking fourth march here, by the way, guys. We're not talking second or third march. These are what you'd run as your fourth march, in my opinion. B tier marches, maybe a Margaret and Gajah would be B tier. It's pretty poor, but if you really wanted to run it, you could do. Not really recommended. So I'll just stick them back down there. It just doesn't make sense to run something like that, to be honest with you. Now C tier, if you really wanted to run Narcissus and Cordoba for really low value, you could do. Even like a Margaret at 5111 or 5511 with Cordoba would be fine as a C tier. And I'm not saying it's going to perform badly, because it wouldn't. It performs pretty fine. Low investment on Margaret, to be honest with you. I'd say I'd leave that in C tier. Also in B tier. So I just did think, to be honest, in B tier you could run your Archimedes Cordoba. I did try that, and it was pretty good. So coming out of KVK2, and you might only want to swap one of your engineering commanders. You'd probably swap Mary for Cordoba if that's all you can manage. You get a half decent march there with Archimedes Cordoba. It did perform pretty well from the testing. Now D tier, you're looking obviously your epic commanders here. Mary, I've got to throw in B tier, in D tier for now. Apart from, you know, maybe if she's with you know, apart from maybe if she's with Archimedes down here, she could perform okay with museum buffs. But generally, mixing and matching most of these engineering commanders, you can perform pretty well. Now, you won't see Archimedes and Mary in an A tier march, you know, but B tier I think is quite reasonable because you can still get good reports in the right situation. So guys, I probably will create some kind of image with all the marches put together, a bit like before. Now, it's not changed a lot since Afonso's come along, and even with Archimedes and Mary, because they're just not up there. They're not up in the S and the A tier, really, unless you really had to try and squeeze him in with Cordoba. But I might have a look at doing something like that, sticking it in the, you know, my Discord server, just like I did before. And in fact, I can throw this image up now. This is what it was probably a year ago when I made this. Now, obviously, Afonso is going to be on there, but lower down. Again, like I say, Archimedes and Mary will be lower down the list here. So if you do want to check that image out, save it now. And yeah, I'd say there's not much changing from then. Again, I did put that John and Stephen could perform better when targeting lower health troops, because obviously they've got quite a low rating there, but that could be an S tier march if you're targeting lower health troops. And I did do a test in an AOO practice match with gear and equipment. Well, gear is equipment. When we did Gajah Cordoba and we did John Stephen attacking the same troop, lower health march troop, and generally we found that there were quite equal reports after, you know, after a murder ball fight. You know, some proper testing. We've done some decent testing on this channel, and if you haven't seen the videos, probably worth checking it out. If you haven't seen the Afonso testing, it was kind of a shock, because I thought Afonso would be okay, but I guess he just doesn't have enough stats. You see Babur's kit and stuff like that, and there's just so much more to it. Even like in a swarm situation, you can see Babur's going to hold up, but Afonso's just not enough there for me. So guys, I hope this tier list was helpful. Again, I'll try and bring out a decent image with all the marches on there. A little bit better than this for obviously my Discord group. So check it out, guys. Thank you for watching. This is Mr. Siege, and bye-bye.